capital for Plateau. Let's switch gears now to bring you an education rights advocate, Raquel Kasham Daniel, who joins us from Abuja for more on this. Ms. Daniel, many thanks for joining us. Education is a right of the child, but right now, security is also at the forefront as well. I mean, tell us a bit about the impact of insecurity as we are tackling the rights for children, but most importantly, just out-of-school children at this time.
Thank you very much, Duke, for having me. It's really heartbreaking to see that unity schools have to shut down in the country. I work with a lot of schools especially in the FCT and in Lagos, and we're almost at the exam level, like a week to exam, and these schools are taught to shut down. And it's a necessary precaution because we don't just want to educate children, we want the children to be safe while learning. So yes, it's a necessary step taken by the government. We applaud it, but what we're trying to say as educationists and as non-profits working in this space is to kind of have like a timeline to how long this is going to last. When is this insecurity going to end, and when are our children going back to school? Because education is about safety, it's also about the children's well-being. And so when the children leave school, most of them, they're going home to doing nothing at all. And so when you hear people say stuff like, oh, there's already a plan in place, there was no plan in place. The plan was to have them leave school in another 3 weeks and maybe go home for the Christmas holiday. So cutting them off school right now because of insecurity takes them home, most of them, to doing nothing at all. And this can affect their education. So we're saying it's a necessary step that is taken by the government, but we want to know how long this is going to last. If they come back in January, it's a good step. But anything longer than that is going to affect the children drastically.
Right. Given your years in advocacy, how does a matter like this big, just fall on us all of a sudden? Is it a matter, would you say it's poor planning? I mean, you reiterating the examination and, the resumption date, or is it a failure of early warning signs about insecurity?
The schools have planned. There's already a plan in place for them to resume in September and close in December, mostly around December 15th, 14th for most schools. However, so there's a plan in place already. The insecurity didn't just start today. It's been ongoing for many years. So poor planning or for the education sector, I would say no. But poor planning for the government in fighting this insurgency in the country and insecurity, I would say yes. We need to do more, and we can do better in ensuring that not just the streets are safe, but that our schools are safe for the children. So we are calling on the government to ensure that our children are taken back to school, but taken back to a safe environment. We want them to go back to school, of course, but are the schools safe to go back to? If they are not safe, I would say we need to plan better.
Right. So as we're talking about closing of schools, let's also look at the bigger picture here. You just talked about the timeline. If you were to prefer solutions, what then would now be a timeline to have the children back in school as a resumption? Because I know that I think within the first or second week of January, normally there's they resume schools, and the children are back into school and they start a second term of an academic year. And this period should have been the first term of examination. So if you were to prefer a solution, what would then the timeline now look like, since it's now scattered somewhat?
So for me, I would say the first thing is to ensure that the schools are safe. I would not want our children to go back to an unsafe school. So if the schools are not safe, I would advise that our children are kept home for now, because we want the children to resume to a safe and healthy environment with teachers that are also not afraid to come to school to teach. And so, because when the children go back to school and then they're abducted and then maybe the girls are harassed sexually, we have a lot of things to now manage. And so we're not even talking about these girls that have been abducted and what is happening to them currently, and the boys, of course. But you know what happens psychologically to the girls, especially if they're sexually harassed. We have a lot of things to unpack here. So we would not want them to come back to an unsafe school. We want them to come back to a safe school. So I cannot give you a timeline. What I'll be doing is tell you that we would want the government to ensure that the schools are safe before the children resume to school. And then we can call on our teachers that are watching and are listening. If there's anything you can do to support your children virtually between now and when this thing is off, we would love that the school step in to begin to help them, especially those who can connect virtually, to connect and begin to continue to learn between now and when all this is being sorted.
Now, you just talked about, learning virtually and e-learning, right? That became popularized, all thanks to COVID-19. where the schools, where everywhere was on lockdown, and was right in the middle of the second term for academic year for 2019-2020, right? And so I do have to ask you whether or not, I mean, you are an advocate, you've been with the schools, you've seen, how the academic year rolls. Have the schools, the Unity schools, which is now in focus here, been able to adopt digital learning, e-learning and virtual learning? And now as we transition into, shutdown and we do not know when resumption will be, all thanks to insecurity, how will that adoption look like now? And, what's been the track record so far since 2020?
Okay, Judith, I would say to you categorically that a lot of schools have continued the online learning, even in Unity schools. We have children who tell me, we have assignments and we're doing it on Zoom, we have it in Google Classroom, so they had continued, a majority of them. However, there are schools that are in the rural community who are completely cut off. And these are the ones that we're most concerned about because they never got onboarded into any technology platform at all since COVID, even during COVID. And saying we're taking them back online right now, it was just trying our luck because if they didn't get online during COVID, they're definitely not getting online right now. So for those who are going to be getting online learning is those who are already doing it in their schools currently. And a lot of Unity schools in town, especially in the FCT, I can say categorically, are utilizing online learning in their schools. And for those schools, those are the schools I was addressing when I said earlier that if you can continue, you kindly continue to enable your students continue learning. But for those who are cut off, we might try radio or something like that, things that we tried during COVID and worked. So maybe radio learning and stuff like that. And that's where planning comes in. We need to be prepared at all times, at every level for things like this. In the sense that we need to be ready that if anything happens like this, we can always go on radio or go on TV. It might not be this insecurity, it might be COVID again or another pandemic. What do we now do? So I will implore that if your school is already online, please continue your online learning and not cut off the students from their learning.
Right. I mean, radio school was popularized in Northeast, and I think North Central as well, back in 2020. I wonder what happened to the funding of that platform. I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Raquel Kasham Daniel, education rights advocate. Once again, thank you.